All right, I just texted Christy and Jason says they'll be out of excess select board executive session sometime soon. All right, guys, we're going to give this a few more minutes. We've got everyone assembled. I don't want it to go to waste. I did a poll and we were to have a quorum at 10, so we'll see what happens.
Hi, Stephen.
Who was that?
It's Brian.
Oh, sorry, I was looking at the participants list. Hey, how are you?
Well, the participants list doesn't actually talk, right?
No, I was looking to see, I didn't see anyone speaking because I was looking at that list. How goes it?
Good. How are you?
Good, thanks.
You're going to have a quorum?
I hope so. I checked and I'm going to give it just a couple more minutes. Just we've got
Because I know Jason and Christy are still in e-session.
Yeah, Jason texted me that. I know Peter's traveling and Christy was going to join us, but
Christy Kickham or Christy Ferrantella?
Christy Kickham.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't clarify that earlier. Christy F, Christy K. Rick, did you sign up with the town for your shellfish button? Have you been out scalloping?
Not yet, no, but it is something that I have on my list. So We'll see.
Go for it. We've had some great weather. I saw Pete Kaiser out the other day.
All right.
Do you have yours, Stephen?
Yeah. Pete, how'd you make out?
Fairly well. Got like a third of a bushel. Wasn't I was kind of strapped for time, so didn't really explore around too much. But yeah, good size though. Tons of people at Second Bend. Not sure how they all did, but yeah. How about yourself?
Yeah, we didn't go quite as far. We did pretty well. We were on the I think it's is it Horsehead or
Horseshed?
Shoal
The
for a little
Horsehead?
while?
Yeah,
Yeah.
right across from Brand Point there.
Yeah, I did pretty well over there.
Yeah.
A bushel between the two of us for about an hour and a half.
Nice. Yeah, Tide this weekend's looking perfect for it.
Yeah, you can't beat a breakfast sandwich on a little whaler looking at the Brand Point Lighthouse.
Yeah, it's a fun thing to do in the fall. Mm-hmm.
Before
Yeah.
anyone asks, I will not give away locations to go get scallops.
I wasn't going to bring you, I wasn't going to put you on the spot.
So that's what PJ's for. He can do it.
That's I'll get the dive gear out. Joe Manila's been telling everybody, so don't worry about it.
That's fine.
That's fine. That's fine.
So, but I will say, if you do have the opportunity, snorkelers and divers have definitely been doing better than push rakers. But that's
Yeah.
kind
I
of
was
normal.
diving, especially get down into 15 feet of water, and oh yeah,
Yeah. And the good
Big
deal
ones.
grass. But the Horsehead has been good. I know we've seen some people out there, so that's a good spot.
I remember the first time I dove for scallops. This was, I don't know, 20 years ago. And I was down there and I was thinking, these things are huge. These are the biggest bay scallops I've ever seen. Of course, that's because I was looking through the lens of my goggles. I realized when I came up there. I got a text here. Let me see if this is.
They're always bigger in the water.
yeah. Sometimes you pull them out and they're the size of silver dollars. You're like, nope, that one's going back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
No, we usually tell people that are going, or when people ask for advice, to say, if you hold your hand up and put the scallop in the palm of your hand, and if it covers most of it, you're probably pretty good. If it's when you put it in there and it's tiny and it looked big, just drop it where it is.
Yeah, the button is 2.5 inches also, right? By design?
Yes.
Yeah.
No, to be honest with you, PJ, that was dumb luck, because those buttons and that size of buttons predates when that nub rule came to be. It just
Really?
Yeah, just by dumb luck, those things are 2.5 inches, like exactly.
That's
Yeah,
funny.
when we take newbies out, it's big as a button. You're typically good to go. But other than that, send it back.
Yeah. Yeah, we tell people, when in doubt, just put it back anyways.
Yeah, I have a cousin in town who had no idea what he was doing, but went and grabbed some gear and saw some people out in Matticat. And so he waited for them to get out and went over to where they were. And he got some pretty good sized ones out. I don't know. He must have been around Esther's Island or, Little Neck Way, something like that. But sounds like he did well enough for having no idea what he was doing. So what he had.
Nice. That's
Yeah.
good.
Go ahead, Jeff.
I said we like people getting scallops. That's always
He was
always
psyched.
good.
The mussels were sweet this season too.
Yeah, it's been a good mussel year.
Yeah,
So,
really good.
and we've also gotten lots of good feedback that quahogs have been pretty abundant as well. So hopefully, and I know we're getting ready to release. Lacking on the number, but I feel like we're getting ready to release like another 10,000 seed quahogs that the hatchery produced. So there'll be a lot more out there.
So Jeff, can you we've got, it's 10:12 now. We're here. I'm going to give it a few more minutes, call it 10:15 and we'll call it. But if we could use that time I don't know if we're on the air or not, but Jeff, can you put the rumor or correct the lifespan of an actual scallop?
Yeah. So most scallops, and I always say that, live for about 2 to 2.5 years, give or take. So this first year of life, they'll get through the summer when they're seed scallops, put on that growth ring, and then the next year they spawn again, kind of finish out that second year. before they go, but you do get a few holdovers that will make it into that third year. And some that double spawn, I know we run into them all the time where there's 2 well-defined raised growth rings on it. But that's about it. We've never seen one get beyond there. You'd have to find a old salty guy that maybe have found one that made it into year 4, but we just don't see it. And even those third-year scallops are a real minority of the population.
Interesting. No 5-year scallops. All right. Hey, that's great info. We now have a quorum, so I'm going to call this meeting of the Capital Program Committee to order. It's Thursday, October 8th at around 10:15. Before we actually get into the meat of it, I'll go through Charlie Baker's text here. So for the record, I'm Stephen Welch, Chair of the Capital Program Committee. Let's confirm access. Members, as I call your name, I please Peter Kaiser.
Aye.
Christy Ferrantella.
Aye.
Richard Hussey.
Aye.
And myself. Staff, Rick Sears.
Here.
Brian Turbert.
Present.
And I'll call the speakers, anticipated speakers, as we go through the agenda. So this meeting of the Capital Program Committee is being conducted remotely, consistent with Governor Baker's executive order of March 12th. That order, posted with the agenda materials for this meeting, allows public bodies to convene remotely so long as public access to deliberations is reasonably provided. This meeting is convening via Zoom with video and audio recording, and we are being broadcast via YouTube on the town's YouTube channel. With no member of the public having asked to speak, this particular meeting will not feature public comment. Materials provided to members for the meeting or provided during the meeting are, unless otherwise noted, available on the town's website. During the meeting, I'll introduce agenda topics and speakers. Please remember to mute your Zoom audio until your name is called. And let's direct comments and questions through the chair to avoid crosstalk and make taking minutes easier. Lastly, formal votes, if any, will be conducted by roll call. With that said, can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
Richard, on your motion. That's an aye. Pete Kaiser. Peter?
Aye.
Christy Ferrantella?
Aye.
And myself. There's only 4 of us. I should be able to remember who's here. Sorry. All right. We have no public comment. We have DPW general to review and town admin along with natural resources. I think with there's only a few for town admin, natural resources department. So let's proceed with them. And I'd like to, I think that'll be, I see Greg Tivnan here and Jeff Carlson, and I presume those 2 will speak. Are you guys both on? I see Greg coming on, no audio yet.
Good morning.
Jeff, no audio yet. Okay, so
Good
great.
morning.
Thanks, guys. So what I'd like to do in the interest of expediency, noting that we've had some of these, certainly from town admin in the last year, is just call out if there's any changes to the previous year requests. And then if we have questions, we'll answer them as opposed to having to go through each one of these line by line. So with that, Greg, you want to take the lead?
Sure. Good morning, everybody. You can hear me, right?
Yep.
Mhm.
Great. I got stuck on the other side from the weather yesterday, so I apologize. I do not have my capital folder in front of me, so I'm flying blind. Libby also texted me that she will try to join once the select board meeting is over and she is done doing her other stuff. I don't know. I know I was going to specifically speak about the e-document program, the underground wiring request, and Rick, what was, and the facility security. So I can start with the e-document. We do have no change to it, but a lot of changes. So we're not actually changing any of our out-year requests. I believe that's correct, Brian and Rick. We've started the pilot this year with natural resources and public health. It's underway, and several thousand pieces of documents have been scanned and they're being tested right now. The only change we may do is depending on the pilot test, we may jump right into the plus department instead of doing them last because of the urgency of the plus documents and the time it's going to take. We may start that program first and use the annual allocation or appropriation for plus. So no change to the out year requests, just more change internally of how we plan to manage the program.
Okay, and just for the purposes again of efficiency, is there any change do you anticipate in the out year request?
Yes. We don't have the data, we don't have a calculation yet, but it's much more costly than we even imagined. We thought we over budgeted for this. We had some great feedback and back and forth with Laserfish. They're our host provider doing the scanning and the archiving. And we already ran over our pilot, which was $100,000. We ran, Brian, I believe probably about $20,000 over that, $21,000. And we had the funding for it in town admin, but it's just the nature of our documents, the distance and everything. It is more costly. Laserfish came in, we did RFP for this and we did go through a state contract eventually. They were the cheapest provider, but also the provider that integrated with EnerGov and all of our other platforms. So it made sense. Iron Mountain was by far the most expensive. And if we think we're going to follow someplace in between now. That's one reason why we want to start the Plus project first. We believe what we've requested for the out years will be sufficient for all of Plus. Then we can determine how we want to proceed with the rest of the town departments, such as town administration, DPW, finance.
Okay. Thanks, Greg. Any questions for Greg on this request or the out years? Peter Kaiser?
Yeah, so real quick, you said the pilot funding was 100,000, which looks like it was a fiscal 2020 request. And so the request for this year is 250.
Correct.
If I'm reading this correct?
That's
Okay.
correct.
And so, and just because I get this confused sometimes, so last year's was the 100,000 that has already been spent, and then this will be the first round of $250,000 request.
That's
Gotcha.
correct.
Gotcha. And you anticipate, as you were just speaking of, these increasing in the out years? Looks like we're still holding on to 250 a year for each year going out. Are we going to see that bump up to 300, 350?
We don't intend, after discussing with finance, we decided not to bump them up, but instead stay within the 250 in hopes of being able to complete the Plus department. We figure we can only take on about 250,000 annually anyway, the amount of documents cycling through. And by the end of the third year, we hope that we'd be done with Plus. We always anticipated that Plus the quote we received for Plus was about 1.1 million. And that was already 3 years ago. So we're hoping we'll be able to just squeak in with our request and then revisit the program and see how we want to move forward depending on funding.
Okay, so these 3 rounds of 250 are essentially going to cover us through Plus, and then we'll reevaluate there on whether or not we're going to move on to other departments and tack on, more out years, so to speak.
That's our plan right now. Exactly. We
Gotcha.
figured Plus is the Plus documents are much more relevant for the public and more important that we get electric copies. So we figured we'd jump in. It's a much more involved project because we want to do it on island. So we'd have to bring a remote team here.
Gotcha. And so we don't need anything 2024 out at this time.
Not yet.
Yeah. Gotcha. Thank you.
Thanks, Peter. Any other questions for Greg on this one? Greg, just real quick, just curious, the schedule, does the termination of the pilot and the beginning of working on the Plus documents coincide with the transition of the fiscal year, or will it be a little bit different?
A little different. We're just finishing with our pilot for natural resources and public health now. Of course, we got behind because of the coronavirus, and we're testing them. And what that means is Mike Alvarez from IT and other members are checking the documents, making sure we can search for them, that the quality is correct and everything. So we would hope to have that done by June of this year. of course, we're pretty behind. So it's not really coinciding with the fiscal year. But with the Plus project, it's heavy upfront. So even if we start late, we probably will expend all 250,000 in order to do the setup here and get it going. So I think we'll still spend the entire 250 this fiscal year.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you. Let's see. So on underground wiring feasibility study, both the current FY22 requests and out years, any changes to that?
So that I was pretty unfamiliar with that project. So Libby did email me something to say pretty much. There's been no change to it, although it never really began. What this project includes, but not limited to, it's a feasibility study of what it would take to put all utility wires underground, island-wide, not just in the downtown area. The assessment would include where the utility wires are now, where they should go, what sort of coordination and considerations would be required with all the utility providers, and also including managing it with projects going on for sewer, water, and stormwater, so we're not digging up the streets twice. And then how the areas could be prioritized based on need. We also want to add in there now our prioritization around the hazard mitigation projects the town is embarking upon, which means we're taking into considerations sea level rise and hardening our resources. So she said that's in a nutshell, but that's a pretty big nutshell.
A lot of ground there. Any questions for Greg on this one? Richard?
Greg, this is listed as a low priority.
Yeah, it's always been a low priority because of the scope and everything else in front of us. Libby did say, based on the new considerations around hazard mitigation, that it may become more of a priority, just not for fiscal year 21. The assessment would be great to start, but not the actual appropriation for the project.
Okay, thank you.
We did ask our former engineer who worked at Zayad, who helped work on this. His initial estimate for the assessment was about $500,000, and that was 3 years ago. So we asked him again if he could dig that out and get us a new estimate, but he hasn't gotten back to us by this morning.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? All right, so townwide security measures?
Yes, so in 2019, the town, so fiscal year 2019, the town undertook a study of our active killer program, looking at how buildings can be better secured, municipal buildings. And we did this in conjunction with the police department. And we came up with some ideas, but we realized that we need a professional to come in to give us hardcore recommendations of how our municipal buildings can be not so much hardened, but that security measures can be put in place. So this goes beyond just the active killers, such as, calling police, hiding, lock your door, put down the shades. This is more of from cameras to different types of doors to even changing the way business is done by egress.
Okay, thank you. And any changes? I presume there are none, given what you didn't mention them, but any changes for this year in terms of scope or anything like that, or out years?
No, sorry, no, Chair. No, as a matter of fact, we were intending to issue the RFP in March of this year. So the RFP is written, and then of course, life changed as we know it. And so the scope is still ready to be sent out. The scope was built on what other communities have done from around the country, from Ohio, California, Florida, and a couple of Massachusetts. So we're pretty ready to go with that, but we just don't have the funding. We'll have to wait.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Greg on this one? All right, so we'll jump over to Harbor Plans implementation. So this is year one. And
Sure. So,
Jeff Carlson?
Sure. So this is for the harbor plan update. The harbor plan covers both Nantucket and Mannequin Harbor, and it's the primary planning document that manages kind of all of the activities around the harbor, whether it be zoning or natural resources or water quality. It's kind of the parent document for those. This plan will also have to get integrated with the hazard mitigation plan, which has come out, the coastal resiliency plan, which is in development right now, and then also with the water quality plan that's coming out later this year. So we were originally, and much like the last project, had the RFP ready to go for this kind of past March. And I won't say the same thing that Greg said. So it got bumped off to now, and we've kind of updated that figure for what that update's going to take, and then projected that kind of third year that's there as well to start to implement some of the action items in that plan that it comes forward. So we're hoping to kind of continue on and get this out next year and start that update to get it underway. That plan's valid for 10 years once the update's completed. So we won't be back to update that for at least the 8 or 9 years before we need to start that update process again.
Thanks, Joe. Questions on the harbor plans? Okay, good. All right, so as you guys probably are aware, what we'll do is review these, the backup documentation, process them individually through our ranking of relative importance, and then we'll kind of put them all together for our recommendation. So with that done, if we have any questions or in that process, we'll follow up through staff. And otherwise, you'll see your projects in the recommendations list. I can't presume there's any issues with these. They've already been, to one extent or another, approved or recommended. So with that, I'd like to thank you both for coming in this morning and the information. And we will move on to DPW General. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, gentlemen.
I see Rob here coming online. Good morning, Rob.
Good morning.
Hey, Rob. So what we're going to do is, it looks like you've got 9 requests, one of which is new versus a previous year and or even a FY21. And I think what I'd like to do is what we just did is if there's any exception, you maybe just state that up front, either a change in scope or cost for the respective project's fiscal year 22 request or the out year, and we'll just kind of go through the list and see where we end up.
Sure. Just want to go right in order with the projects as listed. We'll start with the CCTV program. I would characterize DPW's efforts with CCTV a bit different than sewers, whereas sewer is under orders by the state to inspect and correct issues with their system. DPW is not under orders. So we're taking an approach where essentially spreading out the CCTV investigations and subsequent repairs over a longer schedule. This proposes to get back on track with the funding of that effort, and the initial investigation, CCTV investigation, was funded at $250. This is back at $266. The initial investment was about $160, and that was based on limitations of trying to balance DPW's needs. At the same time, we had put the contract out, sharing the responsibilities with sewer. And obviously, as I mentioned, sewer's work was a priority for the order that they're under. So we're hoping to get back on track as a separate contract with additional drainage system coverage. We're also understanding as we go, learning a bit about the unit pricing, and we expect that the unit pricing will be a bit higher, actually significantly higher, with regard to the experience that the various contractors have had here with our system. A lot of the pipes we're finding, even with our cleaning efforts, do get inundated with sand. So the heavy cleaning price that the contract has typically carried has been really under what it really needs to be to make sure that the contractors are fairly paid for these services. So we feel like 266 is right on target where we should be to allow for what is expected to be higher pricing, as well as a little bit longer lengths than what we've been able to get at in past years.
Okay, great. Any questions for Rob? Rob, out years, you see anything on the horizon changing with what you've got?
We will adjust. We'll adjust the out years accordingly based on the per year contract here. But I think the important point is that we've staggered it. We've put it out 22, and then we've gone 24, 26 instead of annually.
Okay, thank you. All right, so next up is the six-wheel dump truck, if you've got any changes on that.
So the dump truck, we do not have changes on that. It's a replacement of a 2009 model, and that's where we're at with that. We will. I know that we have a new fleet manager. The fleet manager is getting up to speed on a lot of different fronts, but one of those is to refresh the quotes and to develop our prioritization plan for the fleet on the heels of our first fleet manager who's left. So that's a priority among the other priorities of getting surplus equipment out for auction or for sale, and obviously maintaining the day-to-day vehicle fleet, getting everybody ready for winter at this point.
Got it. Okay. Any questions on the six-wheeler? The electric admin vehicle? Any changes there, Rob? Or
yes. So electric admin vehicle was presented and rejected in the last round, and obviously these vehicles, the ones that did make it, the six-wheel dump, the F-350, the sweeper, the Rangers, all made it into the warrant, but were pulled for COVID. So the two asks that were added back in that were previously rejected were the electric vehicle, admin vehicle, and the fleet service vehicle, which we'll talk about next. So I've added these back in for a number of reasons. We have a demonstrated need. The admin vehicle would be in keeping with the town's move towards electric vehicles. We have, as you know, a grant to construct electric vehicle charging stations around the town. One of them will be the DPW facility. We have antiquated and often mechanically challenged fleet of Ford Rangers that the line staff as well as the admin staff are expected to use daily, and oftentimes the admin staff particularly end up using their personal vehicles to make trips around town when that vehicle is specifically down. So this is sort of in keeping with again, where we're moving forward with electric vehicles. It would also allow our fleet management staff to become far more familiar with service of those kind of vehicles. So that's in there for that.
Okay, great. Any questions on the electric admin vehicle? Fleet service vehicle, utility body?
Yep. The fleet service vehicle is something that we've come to rely on a lot more in the last couple years. We have cobbled together a truck to do this, but the challenge that we have currently is it's really not designed to do this work. The one that we've spec'd out here is significant upgrade from what we're doing currently, and this is a vehicle that is specifically for our mechanics and fleet manager to be able to get out and service in the field something that's gone wrong with the vehicle. And it may include just getting it up to speed so that it can actually make it back to the garage to get further work done on it. Not looking to completely outfit it like a tow. It's not a tow truck, but it definitely serves a purpose to either keep things moving or to get them back for service. And this is a vehicle that will have plenty of tools and that sort of thing as ancillary attachments to it.
Okay, thanks, Rob. Any questions for Rob on this one? And Rob, just for clarity, has the priority status changed? And then I'll get Pete Kaiser. With this request, has there been any change in your priority for it? We're a year later.
To be honest, I don't remember if I've updated Rick on the priority for this specific one, but I think the idea that I'm bringing it back after having it rejected speaks to its priority for the department. I think that having something like this goes a long way, particularly since the island does not have a heavy wrecker, and we have a fleet of heavy vehicles.
Okay, thanks, Rob. Peter Kaiser.
Yeah, so as you said, I mean, you've kind of cobbled together a truck to be able to go out and make repairs and make sure that vehicles can get back to the shop. We've never had anything like this vehicle before, right? In the past that you're aware of?
That's correct.
Okay, and how many times, let's say in 2019, in a more normal year, would you say, or even 2018, this would have gone out, to try to service a vehicle that was broken down in the field, and this would have been integral to get it back to the shop or tow it back?
I would say, fair question, Pete. We're talking some days this is out a couple times a day, and sometimes it'll spend the entire day doing what I would say, characterize as sort of roadside repairs. In some cases, keeping some of these older pieces functioning. Unfortunately, they get out to the work site and it dies or something fails, and we have to try to do it out there instead of in the garage. Overall, I would say you're probably talking at least half a dozen times a month. This thing is spending possibly up to a full day in the field, but it allows the flexibility to be able to do repairs on the fly, as opposed to having the staff member either retrailer the vehicle or bring this thing all the way back across the island to the garage. It's quite a versatile piece to just maximize the efficiency of the crews that are out there.
Certainly, yeah. I mean, you don't want to waste time, bringing something back to the shop, spending 5 minutes fixing it, bringing it back out. And I mean, we're talking obviously trucks, cars, tractors, all sorts of different types of equipment, right?
Definitely.
Yep. Pretty much any assets that you guys have, this thing would be deployed to go and make sure that they're up and running well enough. Okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great, thanks, Peter. Any other questions at this time? All right, Rob, so the Ford F-350, the sweeper, and the 2 Ford Rangers were prior year recommended, I believe. And
Yep.
Any changes to the scope or, how you're equipping them or out years?
No.
All right. I think unless anyone has any questions, that would be the extent of needing to get into those. They're pretty self-explanatory. The Nobody or Field House, can you dig into that
Sure.
one a little?
Yep. With your other hat on, you're familiar with the Fieldhouse project. It has been approved through HDC, and this is the restart of the project that was imagined back in the mid 2000s. So we have ourselves basically a field house, a 1,451 square foot field house with 3 attached bathrooms, a family restroom, a men's and women's room, and a 248 square foot covered porch off the back that just squares off the building. This is to be located sort of off the parking lot at Nobadeer, in the general vicinity of the artificial turf field, and is essentially to be utilized as an open air gathering place, to be both a shade shelter and a weather shelter in inclement weather for teams and families that are there utilizing the facilities. And so this is to be served by on-site septic, is really a basic pared down field house based on feedback and input from both the public, the users from the various sports teams and other users of this field and location, and also provides for future potential expansion as the field complex is expected to grow by at least 1 full grass field. So we've gone through with an OPM and our engineers and architects to get to this point. Again, we do have HDC approval, and the package is ready for bidding. The issue is the CPC funding that remained on this project was about $700,000, and the cost estimate for this pared down field house is at 1.6. So we're basically coming back to just ask for a supplemental to get this thing finally completed. The intent is to hold the bid documents until March and get those out and be fresh and ready with an actual construction number for town meeting, so that we have the ability to make adjustments as necessary on the floor.
Okay. Thank you, Rob. Comments or questions for Rob on this one? Richard Hussey?
Hey, Rob. So the total ask is $1 million in supplemental. That'll get you.
That's correct.
Complete, according to the estimates we have right now.
That's right.
Okay. Thank you.
Anyone else at this point? Okay, I'll just say, Rob, it's as I said at HDC, it's an attractive building. I think it's really sensitive to the design, is sensitive to the area. Functionality wise, I seem to recall there's even floor drains in the large open space, big barn doors so you can get in and out easily. It just seems like a really functional building, and it'll serve the that area and the needs well right up front and then in the future. So thank you for that. All right, so Children's Beach storm water pump, is any changes to that one, Rob? Either scope or for if there's any out year component?
No, that one is that is no change to that.
Okay, great. Well, I won't repeat what I said to Jeff and Greg, other than thanks a bunch for all the information. We appreciate it. We'll process our, do our due diligence individually and then formulate the recommendation. If we have any questions on any of these, we'll get back to you through staff.
Sure. I appreciate that. I appreciate the committee's time on this and their feedback, both in the past and this year as well. I want to also put a shout out to Rick, who's put a tremendous effort into this, and I want to say thank you to Rick for that.
Excellent. We appreciate that feedback too.
Hey, Rob,
Peter.
real quick. Yeah. Hey, sorry, last minute. Does the costing for the field house, that includes septic and all that engineering and everything?
That's correct.
Okay, gotcha. Obviously, it's not in the plans I'm sure for good reason. I just wanted to make sure. Okay, great. Thank you.
All right,
You got
let's just
it.
say a phone call. All right, hey Rob, thanks a bunch.
You got it. Thank you, guys. Have a good day.
You too.
Thanks, Rob. So next up, we've got a update on the SIP request access from finance That would be access for the finance committee and the select board.
Sure. So we're working with the developer. There were a couple changes that we asked for. He's making them hopefully this week. And my expectation would be, once he gets it back to me and we review it and sign off, that we can, FinCom, correct me if I'm wrong, Rick, but FinCom logins have already been created. And then we would be able to do select board after that and then roll it out and have a training to everybody, hopefully early or late next week, early the week after, prior to the joint meetings.
Okay, that's great, Brian. Appreciate it. I think it's an important initiative. Well, we all do. Richard?
Just a question for Rick. When we see two listings in the Rorys, are they different? Is one more updated than the other?
So there's a couple, Brian and I were talking about this last night. There's a couple, and do you see two every time you go to a Rory? Because then I might have to look at.
No, some come up as doubles. And I'm just curious, does the second one have more information than the first?
I don't know, because I don't actually know what you're seeing. So, but we do have a couple right now that we need to, that I've emailed the developer yesterday, where you're probably seeing last year's Rory. So for instance, if Nat is on it, then you'll know that it's a dated Rory and you can't actually update that. That's DPW 21002 and DPW and 21006. But you should, I believe you should only see one Rory, which should be the current Rory. Brian, maybe you've spent way more time on the Rory piece of this than I have.
Yeah, Richard, can you give me an example of what you're seeing double of, just so we can talk to them, ask them?
Sure. Hang on. Why don't you go on and I'll wave my hand when I find it.
I'm looking at one right now. So you're talking about online, Richard?
Yes.
Yeah. So island-wide underground wiring feasibility study.
Okay.
For example, I mean, if you expand it to 100 entries per page and then sort it by department,
Okay.
They do.
you'll see them right next to each other. And so it's admin 21002.
Yep.
Richard, I would say the one thing to look for is that submitted on date. So the one differentiator being you have 9/24/2019 and then 9/14/2020. So I'm guessing the 2019 was for last year's request.
Okay.
I would think, and Brian can correct me if I'm wrong, because obviously I don't know if we see a duplicate for every single multi-year request or not.
Yeah, we'll check, but you would be correct though. Date submitted would be the one that you would want to look at if you see two, because we clone these. So we'll just have to ask them why there's a duplicate with some of these. But having one project will be good to be able to go back to him and the developers and give them the example.
Right. Yeah, because there's a lot of submitted on 2019s that are still populated in here. So I don't know if those are the ones that were submitted last year, either stricken from the warrant, didn't get voted on, or got rejected by us. So now they're just requesting them this year, but they still haven't been resubmitted in this year.
So Brian, the ones they're talking about are the ones that were pushed to us, but they're obviously still populating the view. So
Okay.
as Peter suggested, the best way to sort those is on the date submitted.
Yep.
If it's a 2020, then we know it's a current request. I have compared some of them. The information, they are discretely different. So if one has been updated, for instance, with notes, the other, it seemed to me like the previous push has not been updated. So it's just a residual. Okay, thanks. Richard, just to be clear, I haven't seen an actual Rory duplication. Are you seeing a Rory duplication too, or just the request?
Just the request.
Okay, I just want to make sure if there was more than one potential concern to look into, I wanted to identify it now before we start to get into Rory's in bulk. Okay, great. Any other questions, Peter?
Just lastly, to put a pin in that, or to close that one out. So if you go to the actual Rory, if you click on My Rory in one of those older requests, so for the island-wide underground wire feasibility study that was submitted in 2019, if you go into that request and then you click on the My Rory, button on the left side to bring you up to where you would enter your own values. It is, I think it blocks it out so that you can't actually update it if they're from last year. So just I don't know,
Right.
just the control that's in place, I think.
No, that's a good point. So what I was using those for is a comparison to
Right.
bring up the previous request, click on the Rory in a tab, and bring up the new request and click on the Rory, and you could just you can kind of
See which one's new and old.
yes. Well, you can also look at what your previous entries were, maybe before or after, if you wanted to compare them.
Mhm.
But I think for Brian's purposes, the thing we'd want to make sure is that when the developer's in there working, the Rorys that show as open, I presume will only be the new Rorys that are related to the requests that were submitted in 2020. I mean, it's a programmatic thing, so I don't think there'll be an issue, but I just want to mention that.
We'll double check, but my understanding would be the only ones that would show are the ones that the ones that would show needing to be completed are the ones that have been cloned and have 0 of 8 Capcom members or how many ever, because that's what it's recording on.
Yep, perfect. That'd be great. Okay, let's see. Green Sheet Committee reports. Jason?
Yeah, just I haven't done any of the Rorys because it doesn't make. I don't know what's really going on. I've got 11 pages. We haven't gone through them yet, and there's doubles. So I think I missed a meeting maybe where you guys went over all of this. So I'm just a little. I feel like I'm where Nat was a couple years ago. All of a sudden.
Okay, I think I can clear it up, and I'll do it online, I think, for the benefit of anyone else who might have some questions. It's kind of a recap of what we just discussed. If you go into the request view and sort by department, and then you look at the request submitted date. And what I've been doing is right-clicking. If you got an Apple, it might be a little different. Open only those requests, because they'll be the new requests. And then when you follow through the information, when you open that up and you click on My Rory, it will be only for the new request, as opposed to the old ones that are also in the report view.
Yeah, I don't understand what you mean. Because when I go up to the top right and I click Rory's, I'm in My Open Rory's, and there's 11 pages there. So what am I missing to get to? Do I just have to go through the ones that are just submitted in 2020 and just pay attention to those?
Yeah, the submittal date is what you want to sort on, and well, I don't know if you want to sort on it, but that's the one you want to pay attention to. So does that make sense to you?
I guess. So why are they all in there? If we all, I just want to see what I need to look at. Is that too much to ask?
Yeah, we'll let Brian address it, but it's a programmatic thing. They cloned them and they pushed them in different things. Brian, can you speak to that?
Yeah, I don't think we actually ever talked about what we were going to do with previously completed Rorys and prior year Rorys. So I think that they're showing up because they were all pushed to you at one point or another. So I think that they've been pretty responsive to what I'll call emergency requests. So we can call them or email them today and ask them to come up with a solution that can be rolled out to everybody as expeditiously as possible to clear that up. It might be as simple as taking everything from 2019 and just archiving it so that it doesn't show up anymore or something, but I'll let them figure out what they want to do, how they would do it.
I mean, Brian and Stephen, maybe it's advantageous for us to look at what we did before. Maybe it doesn't need to change.
I think that for ease of this, maybe what we could do, if we could get them to put that what shows up first on how many ever pages it takes is the current versus the prior, so that you were looking at those first versus having to sort through them. Because I understand it can be tough.
Brian, I just want to be clear. We're using words that are not interchangeable, and for the purposes of if we're making changes, I want to make sure we're clear. So on the screen, the Rorys and the request forms are what I'm talking about is the differences. So on the screen, trying to find one that is We'll sort by department. So I did 100 views, so I get all of the views. I've sorted by department. I'm going down the screen and I'm looking at, these are any request that has a submittal date of 2019 is old. And I get what Jason is saying is it's old. I don't necessarily want to see it, which makes perfect sense. Here's an example.
If it's as easy as just saying, like, look, just do the 2020s.
Yeah,
Just
and that's,
ignore.
yeah, that's what we've been saying is, so
Okay.
if you're looking at the screen now, here's the fleet sweeper,
Yep.
and that's 2020. And then down below it is 2019. So
Yep.
so all I was saying is if you open this one in a new tab, and you open this one in a new tab, you'll get the you get the two of them. And if you wanted to, you'll do it. You can click on the Rory. You'll see, oh, this is the old one. That's the one that's already been completed. This is the new one. And then if you wanted to, you could literally just compare the two of them as you're filling this out for your own purposes, either before or after. But you don't need to do that. You just need to sort. You can sort on the department, and then you can pick the 2020s. One of the things that would be helpful, I just want to mention, if they're doing this, and it's probably, if it's possible, Brian, for them just to do this quickly, is we can't, unlike you guys, we can't sort filter by department. So it'd be nice just to be able to filter by department, and you'd have, just DPW general up. And then it'd be a little easier to filter through what's 2019, what's 2020.
Okay.
If it's not something you can do this season, I get it, but it would be helpful. Peter?
Real quick, so you can search, if you restrict it through the search field, you can restrict what you're seeing to just say DPW or just town admin.
Mm.
David, would it be helpful if, so I can send, only if it's helpful, I can send a report, pull a report and send all the projects that have been submitted to Capital Committee today in a spreadsheet, which will have the type, have the project name, it'll have the designation, the project code, and then at least exactly which ones you have to look you need to do, so you can go find them in here. If that's helpful, great. It's a pretty simple little spreadsheet. It just pulls straight off the thing, but it would give you all the current ones, all the ones that you have definitively been advanced to Capital Committee this year.
Rick,
I would suggest that that's probably helpful in conjunction with looking at those numbers on the date submitted as a 2020. And then you'll have it in front of you. You can print it out. You can look up the code, and then you can just select the 2021 and cross it off your list once you've completed it. Jason, I'm sorry, were you going to say something?
Yeah, I was just saying, thanks for catching me up. I'm a little behind. I missed some meetings, so I appreciate all this. I don't think we need to go back to the programmer and what you suggested, Brian. I think if Rick sends that, then I can kind of print it out and go through, and now I understand how it's working. And it could be helpful to see what I did last year with information that I have now. So I think it's fine the way it is.
Okay. Any other thought, Richard Hussey?
Rick, I found the listing that you put out with the items that we're going to review today very, very helpful. So if you could, that's a great thing to include in the agenda packet. You list by department and then the actual code number for each item. That's very helpful for me.
Not Stephen's idea, so thanks, Stephen, not me.
No, we're a team effort. So the more we can do to help each other get through this, the quicker, the better, as far as I'm concerned. So thank you, Rick, for getting that out there. If you wouldn't mind, Rick, I would appreciate it if you just threw together that spreadsheet and sent it to us.
Yeah, no problem.
That would be great. And we'll all know then just to deal with the 2020s, and we'll have our 19s as a resource. Okay, any other comments generally? I think that's kind of a, all right. Green sheet committee reports, anything going on that Capcom might want to know about? Select board or NP and EDC or? No, okay. Good in the order? Everything's good, love it. Date of next meeting is October 15th at 10 a.m. Minutes are under review as posted in the agenda for 9/3, 9/10, and 9/17. And with that, I would like to ask for a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Thank you, Richard. On your motion, Richard?
Aye.
Christy Ferrantella,
Aye.
Peter Kaiser,
Aye.
Jason Bridges,
Aye.
and myself. Thanks, everybody. Really appreciate it. See you next week.
Thanks,
Thank
all.
you.